Hello, my name is Josiah Garcia, and I did my research project on the Maori tribe. So, who are the Maori? The Maori people originate from New Zealand. So, they actually live in New Zealand currently, but their clan originates from East Polynesia, and they got there between 1320 and 1350, is what people believe. So, they are actually made up of multiple tribes. There's a different few tribes, and I'm going to name a few. There's the Ngapui, Ngatsprole, and Ngati Kungala. So those are just a few of the many tribes that they all make up. They also do not have reservations, but they have land treaties instead. Like we see that here in the US, there's many reservations where Native Americans live, but instead there, they have land treaties and agreements with the government. So, for example, there was a Treaty of Waitangi, and that was created in 1840, and the reason is for the full, exclusive, and undisturbed possession of their land. This way, they can go on about their day and own their land and have their own laws without being disturbed by the government. They also have a connection to the land. They call this kaitanaga, and this basically means that they're protecting and sustaining their land. They have a spiritual connection to their ancestors and even the future generations. They consider themselves the guardians of their land, so they hold this place very, very sacred. So we can also see that there is 598,605 Maori currently living in New Zealand, and this makes up about 49% of the total population. Today, there are many Maori who live in major cities, and not too many of them live in rural towns like how they used to back in the day. So the Maori's material culture. The Maori were great hunters, gatherers, and great at growing crops. For example, they would weave fish nets together from flax. They also would carve fish hooks from bone and stone. So with these tools and weapons, they would usually hunt different animals, and they actually would hunt the world's largest bird. Now the bird is extinct, but it was called the moa. So when it comes to their food, they would grow yams, potatoes, cabbage, and sweet potatoes. These were easiest to grow, mostly the sweet potatoes, just because of their land and the soil and everything like that. So when it comes to their clothing, they would usually wear animal skins and use clothing from native plants. So the type of clothing and their hairstyle actually depended on their status in the clan. So the bigger the hair, the higher the status within their clan. Also, whenever they were farming, they would enhance their soils by doing different types of drainage. They would use organic materials, probably ones that were biodegradable, and they would change their exposure to the sun. When we look at their weapons and defense, they were crafted from bone, wood, and usually greenstone. We can see in that picture right there with that axe is actually the greenstone right at the tip that they would use. Right there in that picture, you can see some of the clothing that they would wear, and they would create spears, clubs, and axes. However, they have different names for this. For their spears, it was the taiha. For the clubs, it was the mere. And for the axes, it was the toki. So, now they used to live in rectangular houses made of tree bark and fern. Obviously now, they wear mostly modern clothing. However, if they have their traditions, they wear their traditional clothing, as far as just different types of plants and animal skins and types of leather that they used from animals. So let's look at their customs and traditions. So they have a welcoming ceremony called the Pauwiri, and this pauriri is what they use for any guests or even travelers that come into their territory, and they kind of just do this as a hello or welcome. Another custom that they do is the haka. The haka is probably the most well-known tradition that they do. So the haka actually means, it's a dance, and it means the Maori community and identity that's passed down from generations. It could mean multiple things. It could mean pride, strength, unity, respect, and sometimes it's even a war call or war cry. The haka was actually just used recently in a New Zealand court when some of the officials felt like they weren't being represented enough. And they did the haka and they performed their dance. And this blew up all over social media. And I specifically remember seeing it. And the videos of them expressing their emotions through this haka dance. They also use a sacred communal space for weddings and funerals called the marae. A huge holiday celebrated in New Zealand was actually adopted here recently. It's called the Matariki, and this is the Maori's People New Year. So it means to look towards the future and remembrance, and it's a celebration. They look for the Plato star cluster, and it's usually in midwinter whenever they do this and celebrate their new year. Some notable members of the Maori. The only one I could really find a lot of information on was this man named Kupe. Kupe is one of the most notable members because he was the first ancestor who traveled from his homeland of Hawaii, which is not on any modern maps, to New Zealand, and he was the first one of their tribe. This is a picture of what they thought he might have looked like back at that time, and you can also see he is holding greenstone, like I mentioned before. So he used the stars and ocean currents as navigational guides to find his way to New Zealand. And as we know, these people are very spiritual, and they believe that things like this guide them to what they need, to where they need to be. Let's see. So their struggles and successes. So just like any other group of indigenous people, they've had their struggles and successes. So one of their main struggles was between 1840 and 1865, a large percentage of the Maori of their land was taken from the crown. This is their government, and this is whenever they took their land illegally, and there was a lot of different battles that went on. However, a success did come out of this. There's an act called the Waitangi Tribunal Act that helped the land dispossession. So this allows Maori to file claims against the government about their land. This way, if they feel like they're being unrepresented or they feel like something isn't right regarding their land, this act will go into place and it will be taken into the accountable steps. So another struggle they've had is the language dispossession. We see this a lot in many other indigenous tribes around the world. However, in New Zealand, there are programs set in place to learn the culture and language of their ancestors. Obviously, over time, this has been lost, but it's more common as of now for the younger generation to know the Maori language due to these programs. And their language is actually called the Te Reo Maori. When we look at their health, they've also had some health struggles. So the health and medical programs, even now, do not align with the Maori traditions or values. Their values, they use very holistic views regarding spirituality and using their old ways and their ancestors' ways going on for the years. And basically, there was a thing called the Maori Health Authority, which was a success and helped these Maori people be able to use their own medicine and health views while also still getting the normal health care as other people who are not indigenous in New Zealand. So now we're going to look at their Maori art and even some interesting facts about them. So Maori art is actually displayed in museums all over the world and even a few here in the US. If we look at that first picture with the wooden statue, obviously they use wood, and on the right you can see a little monkey that they use greenstone. They use greenstone for many things, like their weapons, tools, and even art, like I mentioned before. They would use other materials. They would use wood, bone, shells, greenstone, flax, and feathers. Also, if we look at some interesting facts, which I thought was really cool, was their tattoos. I've seen in a lot of images that many of the Maori tribe have tattoos on their face, and many of them right here, going under their mouth to their chin. And it's actually a sacred art form that tells stories of their ancestry, lineage, and social status, as well as their life experiences. You can see right there in that picture that some of those men have the art tattooed on their face, and this has been passed on from traditions If we go back to that picture from Coupe, he even had tattoos all over his face, and this has just been passed down from ancestors and generations, and hopefully will continue to be passed down to the future generations. So this visual representation of the Maori identity and connection to the culture. They also are known as great storytellers as they have passed down songs about the ancestors for generations. They even use these songs to express political views, explore their identity, and connect to spaces and places in their lineage. They use these songs to storytell, even if it may be in their own Maori language. And after this, I just have a few of my resources. But that is the Maori tribe. That is all the research and information that I have for you guys today. Thank you.